The snow fell like white knives from the dark sky. Kethva gripped the controls of his small ship as it spun through the storm. Warning lights flashed red all around him. The engine made terrible sounds before it went quiet. No, Kethva said in his own language. His reptilian hands shook as he tried to fix the broken systems. But it was too late. The ship hit the mountainside with a loud crash. When Kethva woke up, everything hurt. His green blood dripped from cuts on his face. The ship's cabin was crushed and tilted. Cold air came through the broken walls. He could see his breath like white clouds. Kethva came from a planet called Velen. It was always warm there, like a sunny beach. His people had never seen snow or ice. They thought cold places were death worlds where nothing could live. When the Velani Empire sent scouts to study other planets, they only looked for warm ones. But Earth was different. The Empire wanted to know about this planet because it had many different environments. Kethva's job was to fly around and take pictures. He was supposed to stay high in the sky where it was safe. But the storm had pulled his ship down into the frozen mountains. Now Kethva was trapped in what his people called a death zone. The temperature was far below freezing. His ship's heating system was broken. Soon he would freeze to death like any Velani would in such cold. He tried to call for help on his radio, but it was broken too. The ship's computer said the outside temperature was minus 20 degrees. That was cold enough to kill a Velani in less than an hour. Kethva pulled his thin flight suit tighter around his body, but it did not help much. Through the broken window, he could see nothing but white snow and dark trees. No buildings, no roads, no signs of life. This was exactly what Velani scientists said about cold places. They were empty wastelands where no intelligent life could survive. Kethva closed his eyes and waited to die. His body was already getting numb from the cold. He thought about his family back on Velen, sitting by warm lakes under twin suns. They would never know what happened to him. But then he heard something strange. Footsteps in the snow. Someone was walking toward the crash site. Kethva opened his eyes and looked out. Through the falling snow, he saw a figure coming closer. It was tall and walked on two legs like a Velani, but it was covered in thick, colorful clothing. The figure carried a long stick and moved easily through the deep snow. The figure stopped near the crashed ship and called out in a language Kethva did not understand. The voice sounded curious, not afraid. Kethva tried to answer, but his voice was too weak. The figure came closer and looked through the broken window. Kethva saw a face. It was a human face, though he did not know that word yet. The creature had dark eyes and pale skin. Frost covered the hair around its face, but it did not seem bothered by the cold. The human's eyes went wide when he saw Kethva. The alien looked very different from any human. Kethva had green skin, large yellow eyes, and a face that looked somewhat like a lizard. But the human did not run away. Instead, he came closer. "Hello?" the human said in his language. "Are you hurt?" Kethva could not understand the words, but the tone was kind. He tried to move, but pain shot through his body. The human saw this and began working to open the crushed door of the ship. The human's name was Dong Min, though Kethva would not learn this for some time. Dong Min lived in these mountains with his wife. He checked animal traps and gathered wood every few days. When he heard the crash during the storm, he came to see what had happened. Dong Min was not afraid of the strange creature in the broken ship. He had heard stories of strange things in the mountains, but he had never seen anything like this. The creature was clearly hurt and dying from the cold. Dong Min knew he had to help. It took Dong Min several minutes to break open the door. When he finally got it open, cold air rushed into the ship. Kethva gasped as the temperature dropped even more. Dong Min saw how the cold affected the strange creature. He quickly took off his own heavy coat and wrapped it around Kethva. The coat was warm from Dong Min's body heat. It felt like magic to the freezing alien. "Come," Dong Min said, though he knew the creature could not understand. He helped Kethva stand up. The alien was taller than Dong Min, but much thinner. His movements were slow and clumsy from the cold. Dong Min put Kethva's arm over his shoulder and began walking through the snow. Each step was difficult for the alien. His feet were not made for walking in snow, and he kept slipping. But Dong Min was patient. He held the alien steady and moved slowly. As they walked, Kethva could not believe what was happening. This creature, this human, was not just surviving in the death zone. He was walking through it like it was normal. The snow that would kill any Velani in minutes did not seem to bother the human at all. The human was even helping an alien stranger. risking his own safety to save someone he had never seen before. On Valen, most people would not help strangers, especially dangerous-looking ones. But this human had not hesitated. They walked for what felt like hours through the storm. Kethva's vision got blurry from the cold and his injuries. He began to fall unconscious several times, but each time the human would shake him awake and keep him moving. Finally, through the falling snow, Kethva saw a warm yellow light. It came from the windows of a small wooden house. Smoke rose from its chimney, disappearing into the dark sky. The sight of the house made Kethva feel something he had not expected: hope. Dongmin helped the alien up the steps to the front door. As they reached it, the door opened. A woman appeared in the doorway. She had kind eyes and long black hair. When she saw her husband supporting a strange, injured creature, she did not scream or run. Instead, she quickly stepped aside to let them in. "Hey Wan," Dongmin said to his wife. "He was in the crash. He's hurt and very cold." Hey Wan nodded and pointed to a chair near the fireplace. The warmth from the fire felt wonderful to Kethva. For the first time since the crash, he began to think he might survive. As Dongmin and Haiwan helped him sit down, Kethva looked around the house. It was simple but warm and comfortable. These humans had made a home in a place his people thought was impossible to live in. Maybe the Villani were wrong about death worlds. Maybe they were wrong about many things. Kethva woke up on a soft bed covered with thick blankets. The room was warm and bright. Sunlight came through a small window, showing that the storm had ended. He tried to sit up, but pain shot through his ribs. "Stay still," a gentle voice said. The woman named Heiwan came over with a bowl of something that smelled good. She had cleaned and bandaged his wounds while he slept. Her hands were careful and kind as she checked the bandages. Kethva looked at his body. His cuts were covered with clean white cloth. Someone had put a thick, warm robe on him. His broken arm was held straight with wooden sticks and more cloth. The care was better than many Villani hospitals could provide. Heiwan offered him the bowl. Inside was hot soup with vegetables and meat. The smell made his stomach growl. He had not eaten since before the crash. When he tasted it, the soup was delicious and made him feel stronger. While he ate, Kethva watched Haiwan work around the room. She moved with quiet confidence, like someone who had done these things many times. She ground dried plants into powder, mixed different herbs together, and prepared more medicine. Dongmin came into the room carrying an armload of wood. His clothes were covered with snow, but he seemed happy and energetic. He smiled when he saw Kethva was awake. "Good morning," Dongmin said in a cheerful voice. He did not seem worried about having an alien in his house. He acted like helping strange creatures was something he did every day. Through the window, Kethva could see more of this impossible world. The temperature outside was still far below freezing. Icicles hung from the roof like glass spears. Snow covered everything as far as he could see. Yet these humans lived here comfortably. Dongmin built up the fire in the stone fireplace. He did it quickly and easily, like he had done it thousands of times. The fire gave warmth and light to the whole room. Kethva realized that humans had learned to control fire to survive in cold places. An older man knocked on the door and came inside. His name was Taeho, and his hair was white with age. He carried a bag of tools and looked at Kethva with curious but friendly eyes. "So this is our visitor from the sky," Taeho said with a smile. He was not afraid of the alien at all. He sat down near the bed and began talking with Dongmin about fixing things around the house. Kethva watched as the old man pulled different tools from his bag. They were made of metal and wood, shaped by hand for specific jobs. Taeho used them to fix a broken chair and repair a crack in the wall. The old human's hands moved with the skill that came from many years of practice. "These mountains teach us to fix everything ourselves," Taeho explained to Kethva. Even though the alien could not understand the words, "We cannot wait for help from the city. We must be ready for anything." Later that day, a young woman came to visit. Her name was Sora, and she taught children in the village school. She brought books and paper, thinking these might help them communicate with the alien. Sora sat beside Kethva's bed and began drawing pictures. She drew the sun, trees, mountains, and people. Then she pointed to each picture and said the human word for it. Kethva tried to repeat the sounds, though his throat was not made for human language. Soon Kethva was drawing too. He drew pictures of his home planet with its warm lakes and twin suns. He drew his people and their cities. Sora watched with amazement as she realized these pictures showed a completely different world. Over the next few days, Kethva learned more about how humans survived in the cold. He watched Dongmin go outside every morning to check the weather, gather wood, and feed the animals. The man wore multiple layers of clothing, each designed for a different purpose. The outer layer kept out wind and snow. The middle layer trapped warm air. The inner layer moved sweat away from the skin. Together, these clothes let humans work outside even in deadly cold. Haywan showed Kethva their food storage. They had dried meat, preserved vegetables, and grains that could last through the whole winter. She explained through gestures how they prepared for cold seasons by saving food when it was warm. The alien was amazed by their planning. His people lived day by day on their warm planet, never needing to prepare for harsh seasons. But these humans thought months ahead, getting ready for weather that would kill most Villani. Kethva also noticed how the humans helped each other. Taiho brought firewood when Dongmin was busy caring for the alien. Sora shared news from the village and brought extra food. Neighbors checked on each other during bad weather. On Valen, each family lived separately and rarely helped outsiders. But these mountain humans worked together to survive. They shared resources, knowledge, and labor. It made them much stronger than they would be alone. One evening, as snow fell outside, the three humans sat around the fire telling stories. Kethva could not understand their words, but he could hear the laughter and see the joy in their faces. They were not just surviving in this harsh place, they were happy. This shocked Kethva more than anything else. His people believed that difficult environments made life miserable. But these humans found joy even in the middle of winter. They sang songs, told jokes, and enjoyed each other's company. Haywan noticed the alien watching them with confusion. She came over and sat beside his bed. Using the few words he had learned, she tried to explain. Home, she said, pointing around the room. Family, she said, pointing to Dongmin and herself. Happy, she said, smiling. Kethva began to understand. These humans did not see the mountains as a death zone. They saw them as home. The cold and snow were not enemies to fight, but simply part of their world. They had learned to live with the harsh environment instead of fighting against it. As his injuries healed, Kethva tried to help around the house. But his movements were clumsy and slow in the cold. Simple tasks that the humans did easily were almost impossible for him. Dongmin and Haywan were patient teachers. They showed him how to dress warmly, how to walk safely on ice, and how to work near the fire without getting burned. They never laughed at his mistakes or made him feel stupid. One night, as Kethva lay in bed listening to the wind outside, he realized something important. Everything the Villani believed about cold worlds was wrong. These places were not empty death zones. They were homes to remarkable people who had learned to thrive in conditions that seemed impossible. The humans had not conquered the cold through advanced technology like the Villani would try to do. Instead, they had adapted to it. They had learned its patterns, prepared for its challenges, and found ways to be comfortable even in the harshest weather. Kethva fell asleep thinking about what this meant for his people's understanding of the universe. If humans could live happily in such a harsh place, what other amazing things might they be capable of? After a week of rest, Kethva felt strong enough to leave the house. Dongmin wrapped him in heavy winter clothes and thick boots. The alien looked strange in human clothing, but the thick hat and scarf hid most of his unusual features. Come, Dongmin said, gesturing toward the village. Meet friends. They walked down a snowy path between tall pine trees. Kethva moved carefully, still learning how to walk on ice and snow. The cold air hurt his lungs, but the warm clothes kept his body from freezing. The village was small but busy. Smoke rose from many chimneys. People moved between houses, visiting neighbors and sharing supplies. Children ran through the snow, playing games and laughing loudly. Kethva stopped and stared at the children. They were playing in weather that would kill adult Villani in minutes. But these small humans seemed to enjoy the cold. They threw snowballs at each other, built snow creatures, and slid down hills on wooden boards. One small boy named Kiwu ran up to them. His cheeks were red from the cold, but his eyes were bright with excitement. He looked curiously at the tall, bundled figure beside Dongmin. "Who is your friend?" Kiwu asked. "He walks funny," Dongmin smiled. "He is from far away. He is still learning to walk in snow." Kiwu accepted this explanation easily. He began showing Kethva how to make a snowball, pressing the white powder between his small hands until it became solid. The alien tried to copy the boy's movements, amazed that these humans could shape the deadly cold substance with their bare hands. They visited the village blacksmith named Jae-sung. His workshop was warm from the metalworking fire. Jae-sung was making tools, sharp knives, strong axes, and metal parts for fixing machines. The heat from his forge felt wonderful to Kethva. "Winter is when I make tools for spring," Jae-sung explained through gestures and simple words that Kethva was learning. "Cannot waste time. Always prepare for next season." Kethva watched the blacksmith work. The man's hands moved with perfect skill, shaping hot metal into useful objects. Every tool was made exactly right for its job. Some were for cutting wood, others for fixing houses, and still others for working with food. The alien realized that these humans had spent generations learning how to live in the mountains. Each tool, each technique, each piece of knowledge had been passed down from parent to child. They had built up thousands of years of wisdom about surviving in harsh conditions. Next, they visited a bakery run by a woman named Yoon-hee. The small shop was filled with amazing smells. Bread, dried fruits, and preserved meats hung from the ceiling. Shelves were packed with jars of food that could last through the long winter. "Must save food when summer comes," Yoon-hee explained, showing Kethva different preserved foods. "Winter is long. Cannot grow food in snow." She gave him a piece of sweet bread made with dried berries. It tasted better than anything from his home planet. Kethva learned that humans had found ways to make food that was both nutritious and delicious, even when using only ingredients that could survive the cold. As they walked through the village, Kethva noticed how people helped each other. An old woman carried heavy bags, but young men quickly took them from her. When a roof needed repair, several neighbors came to help without being asked. Children who fell in the snow were quickly helped up by adults passing by. "We take care of each other," Dongmin explained when he saw the alien watching these interactions. "Mountains are dangerous alone. Together we are strong." Kethva thought about his own people. Villani were very independent. They rarely helped strangers and often competed with their neighbors. But these humans understood that cooperation was necessary for survival in difficult places. In the afternoon, they visited the small school where Sora taught. The building was warm and bright with a big fire burning in the corner. About 20 children of different ages sat on wooden benches listening to their teacher. Sora was teaching them about plants that could be found in the mountains. She showed them drawings of different leaves, roots, and berries. Some were good for food, others for medicine, and some were dangerous to touch. "This knowledge keeps us alive," Sora told her students. "Your grandparents learned this from their grandparents. Now you must learn it too." Kethva was amazed by how much the children knew about their environment. Even the youngest ones could identify plants that were safe to eat. They knew which animals were dangerous and which could be hunted for food. They understood weather patterns and could predict when storms were coming. This was not simple survival. It was complex mastery of a difficult environment. These human children knew more about living in harsh conditions than most adult Villani knew about living on their easy, warm planet. After school, Kai-Wu and some other children gathered around Kethva. They were curious about the strange visitor and asked many questions through gestures and simple words. "Where do you come from?" a girl named Yunji asked. Kethva pointed to the sky. The children's eyes went wide with excitement. "From the stars?" Kiwu asked. "Are there people in the stars?" Kethva nodded. The children began asking more questions faster than he could answer. They wanted to know if people in the stars were different, if they had snow, if they had mountains. What surprised Kethva was that the children were not afraid of him. Even when his hat slipped and they could see his strange reptilian features, they just became more curious. They treated him like an interesting visitor, not like a dangerous alien. That evening, the village held a small celebration. It was not a special holiday, just a regular winter gathering where neighbors came together to share food and stories. Everyone brought something: bread, soup, dried fruit, or hot drinks. Kethva sat near the fire and watched the humans interact. They laughed at each other's jokes, shared news about their families, and helped serve food to the elderly and children first. Musicians played simple instruments while others sang traditional songs. The alien noticed that even during this fun gathering, people were working together. Some organized the food, others kept the fire burning, and still others made sure everyone had enough to eat. They combined celebration with practical cooperation. An old storyteller began telling tales about brave people who had survived terrible winter storms. The stories were exciting but also educational, teaching listeners about how to stay safe in dangerous weather. Kethva realized that even their entertainment served a purpose. These stories passed down important survival knowledge while also bringing the community together. Nothing was wasted. Every activity helped the group survive and thrive. As the evening went on, several people came to talk with the mysterious visitor. They were curious but respectful, asking simple questions and sharing their own stories through gestures and drawings. Taeho told him about the time he was trapped in a cave for 3 days during a blizzard. Yoonhee described how she learned to bake bread from her grandmother. Jae-sung showed him scars from learning to work with hot metal. Each person had stories of overcoming difficult challenges, but they did not tell these stories to complain or to seem heroic. They shared them as normal parts of life like weather reports or family news. When the gathering ended, people helped clean up together before walking home through the snow. Many offered to help Dongmin and Haiwan with anything they needed. Several invited Kethva to visit their homes and see their workshops or gardens. As they walked back to the house, Kethva thought about everything he had seen. This was not just a group of people surviving in a harsh place. This was a complex, sophisticated society that had learned to thrive in conditions his people thought impossible. The humans had turned cooperation into an art form. They had developed technology perfectly suited to their environment. They had created a culture that valued both individual skill and group support. Most importantly, they were happy. Despite living in what Vellani would call a death zone, these humans had built lives full of joy, friendship, and purpose. Kethva began to wonder what other misconceptions his people had about the universe. The morning started with calm, clear skies, but Dongmin looked worried as he checked his weather instruments. The barometer was dropping fast and the wind was changing direction. "Big storm coming," he told Haewon and Kethva. "Very big. We must prepare." Within an hour, dark clouds covered the sky. The wind began to howl and snow started falling in thick sheets. This was not like the storm that had brought down Kethva's ship. This was much worse. Dongmin checked his radio and heard urgent voices talking rapidly in Korean. He translated for Kethva using the simple words the alien had learned. "Hikers missing on mountain," Dongmin said, pointing toward the high peaks. "Trapped by storm. Very dangerous." Kethva looked out the window. The snow was falling so hard he could barely see the trees near the house. The wind shook the walls and made terrible howling sounds. No creature should be outside in this weather. But then people began arriving at the house. First came Ho-jin, the leader of the mountain rescue team. He was a tough, experienced man who had saved many people from the mountains. Behind him came other rescuers, all carrying heavy packs and special equipment. "We have signal from emergency beacon," Ho-jin explained quickly. 3 hikers trapped in cave on north face. Weather too bad for helicopter. We go on foot." Kethva watched in amazement as the humans prepared for the rescue mission. They put on multiple layers of special clothing designed to keep out wind and snow. They checked their equipment carefully: ropes, medical supplies, food, and communication devices. Mi Young, the radio operator, set up her equipment on Dongmin's kitchen table. She had a powerful radio that could reach the trapped hikers and coordinate with other rescue teams. Her calm voice cut through the static as she gathered information about the emergency. 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman, Mi Young reported. They found shelter in small cave, but 1 man is injured. They have some food but not enough warm clothing. Kethva realized that the humans were about to walk into the storm that he knew would kill any Vellani in minutes. But they were not afraid. They were focused and determined, like soldiers preparing for battle. "You cannot go out there," Kethva tried to tell them in his broken human language. "Too cold. Too dangerous. You will die." Ho-jin looked at the alien with surprise. Then he smiled and patted Kethva's shoulder. "This is what we do," Ho-jin said simply. "People need help. We help." The rescue team left the house and disappeared into the storm. Through the window, Keithva could see their lights for only a few seconds before the snow swallowed them up. For the next several hours, Mi-young stayed in contact with the rescue team and the trapped hikers. Her radio crackled with updates as the rescuers fought through the blizzard. Team reached first checkpoint, Mi-young announced. Visibility almost zero. Wind speed 60 kilometers per hour. Keithva could not believe what he was hearing. Humans were walking through weather that would destroy vehicles on his home planet. The temperature was far below freezing. The wind was strong enough to knock down trees, and the snow was falling so hard that people could not see more than a few meters ahead. But the rescue team kept moving forward. They used special techniques for walking in deep snow, ropes to stay together in the whiteout conditions, and their knowledge of the mountain to find the trapped hikers. More volunteers arrived at the house throughout the day. Yun-hee brought hot food for when the rescuers returned. Jae-sung came with extra equipment and tools. Tae-ho helped Mi-young monitor weather conditions and plan the safest route back down the mountain. In mountains, we all help, Tae-ho explained to Keithva. Today, Ho-jin saves people. Tomorrow, maybe Ho-jin needs saving. We take care of each other. By late afternoon, the rescue team reached the trapped hikers. The cave was small and cold, and one of the men had broken his leg when he fell on ice. The woman was beginning to show signs of hypothermia, and all three were frightened and tired. Found them. Ho-jin's voice came through the radio. One injury, need medical help. Beginning descent now. But getting the hikers down the mountain in the storm was even more difficult than reaching them. The injured man could not walk properly, so the rescuers had to carry him on a special stretcher. The woman was weak from cold and needed help walking. The snow was now so deep that even experienced rescuers moved very slowly. Keithva listened to the radio reports with growing worry. The humans had been outside in deadly conditions for many hours. They were carrying extra weight and moving through terrain that was dangerous even in good weather. On his home planet, no one would risk their lives for strangers. If someone got into trouble in a dangerous place, they would be left to handle it alone. But these humans were risking everything to save people they did not even know. Why do they do this? Keithva asked Haewon. Why risk death for strangers? Haewon thought for a moment, then said, because they are people. Like us, like you. Everyone deserves help. As darkness fell, the storm got even worse. The rescue team was moving very slowly, and Mi-young began to worry about their safety. The temperature was dropping and the wind was getting stronger. Team is tired, Mi-young reported, moving slow. Still 3 hours from base. That was when Keithva made a decision that surprised everyone. He had been thinking about his damaged ship, which was still on the mountainside where he had crashed. Some of its systems might still work. I can help, Keithva told Dongmin. My ship has sensor equipment. Can find exact location of rescue team. Dongmin looked skeptical. Ship is broken. Too dangerous to reach in storm. But Keithva was determined. Using gestures and his limited vocabulary, he explained that his ship's sensors could see through snow and bad weather. They could pinpoint exactly where the rescue team was and find the safest route back to the village. Despite the risk, Dongmin agreed to help. They put on every piece of warm clothing they could find and headed out into the storm toward the crash site. The journey that had taken an hour in normal weather took 3 hours in the blizzard. When they reached the ship, Keithva crawled through the damaged hull to the control panel. Many systems were broken, but the sensor array still had power. His cold-numbed fingers worked the alien controls as he activated the detection equipment. On the screen, he could see heat signatures moving slowly down the mountain. The rescue team appeared as bright spots against the cold background. He could also see the safest path back to the village, avoiding areas where the snow was too deep or where cliffs might be hidden. Using Dongmin's radio, Keithva began guiding the rescue team through the storm. His directions were simple but accurate, helping them avoid dangerous areas and find the fastest route home. Turn left at Big Rock, Keithva said into the radio. Safe path along ridge. Deep snow ahead, go around. For 2 more hours, the alien guided the humans through the deadly storm. His ship's sensors could see things that human eyes could not, helping them navigate safely through the whiteout conditions. Finally, just before midnight, lights appeared through the snow near the village. The rescue team had made it back safely, carrying the injured hiker and supporting the exhausted woman. Villagers rushed out to help them into warm houses where Haewon and other healers could treat their injuries. The rescued hikers were a man named Sang-woo who worked in the city, along with his two friends who were visiting Korea. They had underestimated the mountain weather and been caught unprepared when the storm hit. "Thank you," Sang-woo said to Ho-jin and his team. "You saved our lives." Ho-jin just nodded and began cleaning his equipment. For him, this was normal work, not something heroic. But Kethva understood that he had witnessed something extraordinary. These humans had risked their own lives in impossible conditions to save strangers. They had worked together with perfect coordination, using skills developed over generations of mountain living. Most amazing of all, they had accepted help from an alien without question. When Kethva offered to use his technology to assist the rescue, they had not hesitated to trust him. As the village settled down for the night after the emergency, Kethva realized that everything he thought he knew about courage, cooperation, and survival had been wrong. These humans possessed qualities that his advanced civilization had never developed. They were not just surviving in a harsh environment. They were thriving in it, creating a society based on mutual support and shared responsibility. In the face of deadly danger, they had shown the best of what intelligent beings could be. Spring came slowly to the mountains. The snow began to melt, revealing green grass and early flowers underneath. Streams of water ran down the hillsides, and birds returned to build nests in the warming trees. For the first time since his crash, Kethva could go outside without many layers of heavy clothing. His ship had been slowly repairing itself during the long winter months. Volani technology was designed to fix damage automatically when possible. The hull had sealed its cracks, the power systems had restored themselves, and the communication equipment was working again. But Kethva was not eager to leave. He had spent months learning about human life in the mountains, and every day brought new surprises. These people had knowledge and abilities that amazed him more than any advanced technology. In the warming weather, he watched the villagers prepare for the growing season. They planted seeds in carefully planned gardens, repaired tools and buildings that had been damaged by winter weather, and began gathering wild plants for food and medicine. Dongmin taught him how to identify different plants and their uses. Some could heal cuts and bruises. Others could be eaten for nutrition. Still others could be made into dyes for coloring cloth or materials for making tools. Every plant has purpose, Dongmin explained as they walked through the forest. Nothing is wasted in mountains. We use everything. Kethva learned that the humans had thousands of years of knowledge about their environment. They knew which plants grew in different seasons, how to predict weather patterns, and where to find resources they needed. This information was passed down through stories, songs, and daily practice. Haewon showed him how she made traditional medicines from mountain plants. She could create treatments for pain, infection, stomach problems, and many other health issues using only natural ingredients. Her knowledge was as complex as anything Volani doctors learned in their advanced schools. The alien also helped the villagers with some of their work. His ship had tools that could cut metal precisely, and equipment that could detect underground water sources. In return for their kindness, he used his technology to help improve their lives. He helped Jae-sung create stronger metal tools by showing him how to heat metal to exact temperatures. He assisted Yoon-hee in finding the best locations for storing food by using sensors that could detect moisture and temperature variations. He worked with Sora to create better maps of the mountain area using his ship's aerial scanning capabilities. "You help us, we help you," Taeho said with a smile. "This is a good way to live." As the weeks passed, more villagers learned about their alien visitor. Word had spread to nearby communities, but people were not afraid. They were curious and welcoming, treating Kethva like an interesting neighbor rather than a dangerous stranger. Kiwoo and the other children especially enjoyed spending time with the alien. They taught him human games and showed him secret places in the mountains where they liked to play. In return, he told them stories about his home planet and drew pictures of the strange animals and plants that lived there. "Your world sounds warm and easy," Yoonji said one day. "Do you miss it?" Kethva thought about this question for a long time. He did miss the warmth of Valen's twin sons and the comfort of his family. But he had learned to appreciate the beauty and challenge of the mountain environment. "I miss some things," he told the children, "but I learned many good things here too." One morning, Kethva's ship sent him a signal that its communication systems were fully operational. He could now contact the Volani Empire and report on his mission. But he was not sure what to tell them. Everything he had learned about Earth contradicted what Volani scientists believed about cold environments. His people thought that harsh climates made intelligent life impossible. But the humans had proven them completely wrong. After much thought, HFY decided to send an honest report to his commanders. He described the human communities he had observed, their advanced survival techniques, and their remarkable cooperation. He explained how they had not just survived in conditions that would kill most Vellani, but had created a thriving civilization. The response from Velan came quickly. His commanders were shocked by his report. They found it hard to believe that primitive people could live successfully in such harsh conditions. Some thought HFY had been injured in the crash and was not thinking clearly. But HFY had expected this reaction. He sent back detailed videos and sensor readings that proved everything he had reported. He showed them the human village, the sophisticated tools, and the complex social cooperation he had witnessed. As summer approached, HFY knew he would have to leave soon. His ship was nearly ready for space travel, and the Empire expected him to return with his report. But saying goodbye to the mountain community would be very difficult. The villagers planned a farewell celebration for their alien friend. They gathered in the village center with food, music, and gifts. Many people brought small presents that HFY could take with him to remember his time on Earth. Yunhee gave him a bag of her special bread that would not spoil during his journey. Jae-sung presented him with a small knife made using techniques both traditional and enhanced by alien technology. Sora offered him books and drawings that showed Korean culture and history. "These will help you remember us," Sora said, "and help your people understand humans better." But the most meaningful gift came from little Ki-woo. The boy had made a small wooden carving of a mountain peak, working on it secretly for weeks. Though it was simple, it perfectly captured the strength and beauty of the landscape that had become HFY's second home. "For your ship," Ki-woo said shyly, "so you remember mountains." That evening, HFY stood before the gathered villagers and tried to express his gratitude. His human language skills had improved greatly, but words seemed insufficient for what he wanted to say. "You saved my life," he told them, "but you did more than that. You changed how I think about everything. You showed me that people can be strong and kind at the same time. You taught me that difficult places can make beautiful communities." He paused, looking at the faces of people who had become his friends. "My people think advanced technology makes us better than others, but you have something we lost. You take care of each other. You work together. You find joy even in hard times. These are the most important technologies of all." The next morning, villagers gathered to watch HFY's departure. His ship looked strange among the pine trees and mountain rocks, but it no longer seemed frightening to the humans. They had grown used to having an alien neighbor. Dongmin and Haiwan walked with HFY to his ship. They had been his first friends on Earth and had taught him the most about human nature. "Will you come back?" Haiwan asked. "I hope so," HFY replied. "But if I cannot return, other Vellani will come. Good Vellani who want to learn, not conquer. I will make sure of that." Dongmin shook the alien's hand in the human gesture of friendship. "Mountains will always welcome you," he said simply. HFY climbed into his ship and started the engines. As the vessel rose into the sky, he looked down at the village growing smaller below. The humans waved until he disappeared into the clouds. During the long journey back to Velan, HFY wrote a detailed report about his experiences. He described not just what he had observed, but what it meant for Vellani understanding of other species. His report changed how the Vellani Empire approached first contact with new civilizations. Instead of immediately judging other species as primitive or advanced based on their technology, Vellani scouts were trained to look for different types of intelligence and adaptation. The Empire established peaceful diplomatic relations with Earth, beginning with the mountain communities that had saved HFY's life. Trade and cultural exchange flourished as both species learned from each other. HFY became an ambassador between the two worlds. He returned to the Korean mountains many times, bringing Vellani visitors who wanted to learn about human survival techniques and social cooperation. The mountain villagers welcomed these alien guests warmly, sharing their knowledge and culture just as they had with HFY. Some Vellani chose to stay on Earth for extended periods, learning to live in cold environments that their species had once thought impossible. In return, the humans gained access to Vellani technology that helped them communicate with other mountain communities around the world and share their traditional knowledge more widely. But the most important Change was in how both species thought about intelligence and civilization. The Villani learned that survival skills, cooperation, and adaptability were just as valuable as advanced technology. The humans learned that they possessed qualities that even space-traveling aliens admired and wanted to understand. Years later, when other alien species made contact with Earth, they often visited the mountain communities first. These villages became known throughout the galaxy as examples of how intelligent beings could thrive in harmony with harsh environments and each other. And in his home among the stars, Kethva kept Kiwu's wooden mountain carving on his desk, a reminder that the most important discoveries are not about technology or science, but about the strength and kindness that intelligent beings can show to each other.